Thanks everyone for tuning in to the videos so far for this month, which have been highlighting some of the great carbon literacy training across the finance sector. It's been really great to understand the motivations and drivers of ESG goals and indeed the carbon literacy training across the private equity world. In this video today, we turn our attention to banks and the kind of net zero commitments they are making to decarbonise their sector. As well as finance, banking will play a critical role in cutting carbon emissions. The task of attracting investments and allocating capital will be vital in encouraging industry towards less carbon intensive activity and promoting low carbon alternatives and technologies. But there is still so much of an education gap for people to realise the influence and power that banks play in helping societies to make the just transition. Today, I'm joined by Emma from Lighthouse. She is the founder of Lighthouse and she has 25 plus years of experience of advising and training businesses. And she's here to shed some light on the intersection between businesses, the finance sector, and the training that they've offered to Newcastle Building Society to date. Lighthouse Sustainability is a consultancy which in the last year have trained more than 700 employees from companies such as Becco, Silent Night, Boston Scientific and PZ Cousins. They are certified literacy carbon trainers and they have quite a wide pool of associate trainers as well. So let's kick off. Thanks so much for joining us, Emma, and we're really excited to get your perspective here. I suppose I'll start off with the first question. If you could give us a bit of context about the training that you offer, and also quite recently the training that you offered to Newcastle as well.
Yeah, thanks, Farah, and it's great to be here. So we offer carbon literacy training to businesses. So we focus very much on that sector and mainly larger business. We do work with SMEs, but we are mainly sort of medium-sized to larger businesses. And you know, finance is everything to those businesses. They're inextricably linked with their banks, with their financial systems that surround them. And we all know as sustainability practitioners, getting the finance department, the FD on board is really, you know, the most important thing we can do. So we're really keen to deliver more into this sector. So it was great to work with Newcastle's, the first bank that we trained, and just to see how the training landed with them. You know, essentially the same as any other business. They've got issues they need to discuss, they've got language they need to understand, they've got plans they need to make. So it's very transferable into that sector.
Brilliant. And can you talk more about sort of how your training is delivered and sort of what worked when delivering specifically to banks?
Yeah, so our training is commonly delivered online, although we do train face-to-face as well. We tend to deliver over 2 mornings. Days to suit the organisation, with people hybrid working and, you know, compressed hours and all those sorts of things. We have to be really flexible about when we do that. So we tend to deliver online, as I said, but we can deliver in the boardroom and have people dialing in as well. We do some pre-work and some mid-course work and some homework. So we do work people pretty hard, but these are professional people, you know, so it's not supposed to be a walk in the park. It's supposed to be a really deep learning experience for them. So the entire course, you know, takes a day, and we back that up with a portal of resources because we find there's so much more than you can deliver in a day. That actually, you know, the day itself is really important that that's an interactive day. But we back that up with plenty of resources, and obviously we follow up with those learners as well to get the best pledges we can from them and to really support them on their onward journey after the training.
Great. And in terms of the training for banks, you probably found that maybe things like breakout rooms were quite useful to get quite a collaborative conversation going from different roles across the banks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as with any business, but even more so in banking, I think it's bringing a new topic to some people. You know, it's not been regularly talked about, certainly across the business. It's really trying to bring the sustainability messages that may be in one corner of the business to the whole breadth. So we're very keen to to train across the board. And yeah, getting into breakout rooms, sometimes even people from the same organisation won't have met each other, and they certainly won't have had this conversation about carbon. And it can bring out some really fascinating conversations, values that are important for other people in the business to hear, and also connections and linkages. So it's a great sort of melting pot of ideas.
Brilliant stuff. That's really, really interesting and great insight there. So I suppose my next question is, what kind of pledges did you get back from the training? And that's one part of the question. And then the other part is kind of more widely, how in your courses do you talk about kind of the banking sector and financial services?
Yeah, so the pledges are always really interesting. And so there's sort of, I would put them into two camps. You have people who think quite operationally about carbon and how could they reduce the carbon footprint of their own operations, their buildings, transport, food, that sort of thing. And then you have people who are maybe bigger thinkers or systems thinkers. And that's not always just to do with their role in the bank. That is to do sometimes with the way they operate and, you know, how strategic they are in their work. And so that, you know, the pledges around collaborating with other organizations, even just collaborating between departments, setting up working groups, that sort of thing. Those are the, you know, really interesting, exciting ones. So a mixture really. But one of the things that did come out quite strongly from the finance training was mortgages. That seemed to be something that people could visualize and could see as an immediate risk. So the fact that, you know, lending money in the future is going to look very different because of the climate crisis and because of housing and a vulnerability of certain areas and flooding and that sort of thing. So similar, we see the same sort of thing in the insurance sector as well. They are very aware of that particular impact on their business. So sometimes you've got to go with where the door is open, and mortgages is definitely something that came up. The other big area which needs a lot more work is divestment. So again, people are very conscious that they hold legacy portfolios. So they may have significant investments in areas which are starting to look high risk. So they know that that's going to have to be a transition that they go on.
That's really interesting, and it's also interesting to know that you've kind of delivered to banks and you've had that kind of understanding from that, and again that kind of collaborative process of other people in the business understanding that, and of course what that is going to look like for the practice and the services that businesses will offer, banks in particular will offer in the future as well. So why should banks do carbon literacy training? Great
question. I don't think it's obvious from the outset, but actually there are a huge number of benefits to banks taking up carbon literacy training, not just for their own internal net zero processes and strategies that are going on, because all of these banks will be reporting on their carbon targets. It's very difficult to achieve carbon reduction unless you've got everybody on board. So there's an upskilling and internal job to do. And part of that is bringing your employees on board. And banks employ a huge amount of people, often out in the community as well. And so a lot of businesses and banks have told us it's really important for them to be able to connect with their employees on a personal level as well. So helping them reduce their carbon footprints at home. So not only in a home working sense, but there's also just in their sort of personal lifestyle. And then finally, banks are massively important to the business community. They are essential part of the fabric of the business sector. So they have huge leverage. They're meeting businesses all the time. They have huge influence over businesses. So I think there's a really important and valuable opportunity there to connect with businesses on something that's actually a problem for them as well. So in the same way as you might go to your bank for advice on tax or on lending or on growing, in future you should be able to go to your bank for advice on carbon reduction and net zero. Because they're at the hub of this. So I think it's a really, really fascinating place to be for them. And if banks can recognise that there's multi wins, then I think far more are going to come on board and want carbon literacy training.
Yeah, I suppose my final question really is any upcoming courses on the horizon for you and what that will kind of look like.
Yeah, well, we're really looking forward to delivering more into this finance sector, and actually Banking is only a part of that, obviously, but we're also looking to collaborate with others, specialists in this field, because it's a huge, huge industry, and it's a very complex industry. So I think key to this is building capacity. So not just running internal courses, we're also specialists in developing bespoke courses, so we can take generic courses and adapt those for a bank. We would use the bank's internal resources to do that as well, so it's very much designed for them. And then I think importantly, trying to encourage those banks to go on a journey, so it's not sort of like a one-off training, it's more of a year's worth of training, probably, different departments, different groups of people, and then ideally a train the trainer for those organizations, to highlight 2 or 3, even 4 internal trainers who can take that training forward. That's really the best journey that they can get on to build capacity and actually have a kind of long-term goal of increasing carbon literacy in the business.
That's really exciting, and especially to kind of understand what you have in the pipeline. And again, it's at creating that impact, isn't it, and having that lasting conversation that is going to obviously create impact in the future as well. So I'm just going to thank you so much for your time today, and it's been really great to get your insights into how you've delivered so far. And we look forward to hopefully seeing an open course from Lighthouse for the finance sector in there.
Yeah, we'd love that. That'd be great.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Emma.
Thanks.